Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Spiritual Growth Forum. My name is Lisa Parker, and I'm the founder of Trilome and Trilome Academy, and I am so happy to be here with all of you today. So let me get my technology shared with you, and let's get started, and let's deep dive into the world of Psychedelic Integrative Bodywork, healing through the mind-body connection. So as I said, my name is Lisa Parker. I'm the founder of Trilome and Trilome Academy, and I am a psychedelic facilitator. I am a structural integration practitioner, and of course, the founder of Trilome and Trilome Academy. I am best known for revolutionizing the way that body workers and massage therapists approach healing. And Trilome Academy opened in 2023 as the first of its kind academic program for psychedelic integrative bodywork. And I am so happy and proud about that. So I say all of that because it's a little bit funny that I'm now the sought after expert in this field, but it didn't always start that way. And let me show you what I mean. So I graduated from the Dr. Ida Rolf Institute in Boulder, Colorado. I also graduated from programs from the Psychedelics Today program. I've written articles that have been published in Double Bind Magazine and Shout Out LA. And my very first conference was actually in Brisbane, Australia, and that was a self-seeker event or conference called Using Plants as Medicine. And I've also been featured on multiple podcasts, one of which is 52 Weeks of Flow with the beautiful Bea Marie Anning. And that is actually going to be published on September 23rd. So if you're interested in this conversation today, tune into her podcast where we're going to have more conversations about and kind of a deeper dive into what I'm introducing to you today. I also had the privilege of being an Adamani speaker last month, and then of course, podcast on Spotify. So I say all of this is really a little bit ironic because of my background. So I grew up in a very conservative Christian home, and I was a competitive athlete. So psychedelics or drugs were going to ruin my life and kill my brain and shame my family and send me straight to hell. And I'm an introvert. So all of these years later now, to stand in front of all of you and to be a public international speaker advocating for the role of psychedelics it makes me laugh every time I think about that. So let me give you a little bit of a history into who I am so you better understand how I came into psychedelics and how I developed Trilome. So this is a timeline of my life history, and this probably looks a little bit more different than what you're used to. You're probably used to more of a linear timeline. But for this, I'm using a unilome. And if you're familiar with a unilome, or if you're not familiar with a unilome, it is a Buddhist symbol that depicts a person as they go through their life, trying to find their moment of alignment and oneness with their purpose. And so the way the symbol works is down at the bottom, the circle represents when you're born into this world and you start growing up, and then you get into adulthood and you start making your own decisions. And, maybe that wasn't a good decision, or that was the wrong path, or, that wasn't right, until finally you come to that moment of, alignment. And that's a perfect depiction of my life experience. So let me go through this really quickly, just again, so you know who I am and where I come from. So we'll start at the bottom of the gold symbol, and in the middle of the circle is a gold dot. And this represents the time when I was born into this earth. And I believe I came into this world with a very sensitive nervous system that has a freeze effect. I'm definitely not one of those fighters. And so I learned how to disassociate by the time I was 7, because I would get so overwhelmed with life and what was happening around me that the only thing I knew how to do was be to disappear. And that type of nervous system led to a lot of bullying through school, because if you can imagine, if I have a freeze response and I disassociate, then I I'm prime picking for the bullies because they could just tease me and, whatever they were doing all day long, and I wouldn't fight back and I wouldn't say anything and I wouldn't tell on them because the last thing I want to do is go talk about something that, offended me or hurt me. So I turned to athletics because athletics was the way that I could really like release some of my energetic emotion, and I was actually pretty good at it. But it just so happened that I ended up into teams that, were unhealthy. So unhealthy team dynamics, unhealthy coaching dynamics, a lot of the verbal and emotional abuse, a lot of lessons that shouldn't have been learned around my value. Like if I don't perform, then I'm not good type of things. And those were just an intricate part of my growing up. And unfortunately, because of my life history, I just got used to the fact that, oh, this is just how life is. I didn't know that I had a say. I didn't know that there were boundaries. I didn't know that I didn't have to put up with it. I just kind of did. That led to a athletic scholarship in university. So I was a very competitive university athlete. And unfortunately, the abuse just got worse, way, way worse. And at this point in time, I remember my father telling me that he told me because he didn't actually know what was happening, but he was just watching me suffer. And he goes, I don't know why you are suffering so much, but God must be preparing you for something. And I was so, talk about overwhelmed. Because remember, I was born in a church. I was born into a conservative Christian environment where God was supposed to be love and the all being and, for my highest good, and if he was just preparing me to suffer so I could handle more suffering, talk about just that, like all loss of hope and joy just completely drained from my body. So I graduated from college and ended up into a corporate job that I was okay at, but didn't love. It wasn't in my alignment at all. And if you can imagine that sense of hopelessness and depression and being in a world that didn't offer any kind of hope at all, my physical body, along with all of my trauma, by the way, um, because I kind of skipped over that part, so in college and through my adult life, a lot of that abuse turned violent. And there were quite a few really violent acts. And again, with my nervous system, the last thing I want to do is go talk about it. And so everything that happened just stayed, I just held it inside pretty deeply. And, I was just stuck in this loop of violence and abuse and violence and abuse. And then I was in a corporate job that I didn't like. And I had convinced myself that I had just missed my opportunity to be happy. And here I was on the earth to suffer. And God was just preparing me to go through my life and suffer more, is actually what I had really convinced myself of. So if you can imagine, that was having an incredible effect on my physical body. So I was experiencing a lot of pain, a lot of discomfort. And I remember a friend of my sister suggested that I go to a structural integration practitioner, and I didn't know what that was, but I went anyways because I was absolutely desperate. And it was amazing because in one session with her, she was able to read things about my body and my emotions. And it definitely wasn't like a traditional massage. Like she was actually looking at my body and helping me. And I said, that's really beautiful. And I love that. And can't wait to dive into this. And maybe this is something that I can do. And so I looked into the program and really felt this inspiration that I wanted to become a body worker. And this mentor woman of mine had the wherewithal to tell me that, the way that they do the class is that you do all of your sciences in the morning, but then in the afternoon, you take a turn standing in front of the class in your underwear. And then you work on each other in your underwear so you can practice seeing and identifying different body alignments. And my heart just broke because I knew that there was no way I could do that. It would be such a massive trigger that it wouldn't be a healthy program for me. And it was the first time in my life that I had any type of inclination that I needed to go do therapy. And traditional therapy seemed a little bit overwhelming because, again, I'm an introvert and I'm stubborn. And so I will go and sit in front of you in silence for an hour, no problem. So that wasn't going to work. And it just so happened, coincidence or not, my sister-in-law was telling me about ayahuasca. And I am confident because I know this woman. I know that she told me exactly what it was, but honestly, the only thing that I heard was that in one setting, it would be like 20 years of therapy, and I don't talk to people. And so that's actually my introduction into these sacred plant medicines, was kind of through avoidance. I don't want to go talk to a person. I don't have to talk to a person, and I can go drink a plant. That sounds better. And it was life-changing and absolutely magical. So I knew that I needed to do this. Like, this was the type of support that I needed in order to get healthy. And so I started doing that. And I got healthy enough to go into a bodywork program. And it was so interesting to me, the correlation I was seeing between what I was processing through the ayahuasca ceremonies, through the emotional and energetic and spiritual side of things, and then what my body was experiencing when I was going and getting body work every day through this program. And everything just, there was this moment when all of the pieces just clicked together and the light bulb went off. And I understood the connection between my body and my life experiences, between my emotions and my sense of self based on my learned belief systems because of my trauma, and how all of that was so intricately combined together. And now I was on a mission to figure out how to heal my physical body, my emotional body, my energetic body, my belief systems, my intellectual body, and then my spiritual body. And in that moment, my father's words came back to me from 20 years ago, that God is preparing you for something. God is preparing you for something. And I had this like knee dropping moment of going, oh my God, all of my trauma and my life experiences have prepared me to create a method like Trilome, and to stand in advocacy for the people that are behind me, going, I now understand how to heal all of the various aspects of our being based on traumatic life experiences. And so let me turn around and show you how I've done it, and let me show you what I've learned. And yeah, I think my father's words were more wise than he believed, that God was, in fact, preparing me for something. And so I created Trilome, which is a method of putting together psychedelics with bodywork together in one session in order to go into all of those aspects of our being, to heal them within one session, instead of having to go to a therapist and a body worker and psychedelic experiences and all these different practitioners to do it piece by piece. This is a way that we can do it all together in one session. And so it took me quite a few years to figure out how to create something that was safe. Because it's one thing to do it with friends and family that trust me, but touching someone when they are altered is very, very sensitive, right? Especially if that person has a physical boundary crossing. And especially if that physical boundary crossing involved a substance. If they were altered, or if their abuser was altered, something like a Trilome session can easily bring back a lot of triggers. And because of my own life experiences, I'm so sensitive to that I needed to find a way to do this in a way that was incredibly safe and could provide profound healing for people. And the transformations that I was seeing with my clients was so profound that I knew that this method was beyond me. That there was a collective consciousness around psychedelic integrative bodywork. I just happened to be the one that caught hold of it and put it to action to create it into this earth. And so I knew that I needed to train other people how to do this. And so I created Trilome Academy in 2023, so I can train other people how to do this profound method. Oh, I'm getting a message. There is a technical snafu. So hold on one second, because I want you guys to be able to see what I am sharing. So let me try again. And let's go this way. So let me see if this works. Give me 1 second.
That looks good.
Yeah, okay, we're back on track. Perfect. All right, so I'll let you guys kind of catch up and see that a little bit. And let's move on. So let me show you, or I'm going to share with you throughout the next half hour or so, 3 discoveries that I made through my own journey through healing. And the first discovery is that we continue to hold tension in our body that no longer serves us. And here's what I mean by that. Our autonomic nervous system is a brilliant function of our nervous system that runs all of our automatic functions without logic and without thought. So heart rate, digestion, circulation, breath, and blinking, although we can tap into those, we don't actually have to. They will happen on their own. And it's the part of the system that runs our reflexes. So if you think about a reflex, it's something that just happens, right? It doesn't happen without logic or thought or strategy. You know, if something's coming at your face, you just naturally move. Or, excuse me, my personal favorite is when I'm slipping and, like, you know, my hands go in crazy directions. I'm not thinking about how to balance myself or how to protect myself. It's actually just happening. So what happens is when we get through life and there's a perceived threat or conflict, what do? We tense our bodies to protect, and then we get through it and we relax, but maybe not all the way. And then life happens, and as a reflex, we tense and we get through it, but maybe not all the way. And before you know it, we have all of this extra tension that is stored in our bodies, and we don't cognitively know why it's there. And it was there for a reason. You know, it was there initially in order to protect ourselves. But the message that we are safe, that we are out of the threat and conflict has never been received. And so it's hard for our bodies to know how to come back to a full relaxed state if the reflexes are just there to protect. So let's think about PTSD. You know, PTSD means that there's a part of your nervous system that gets triggered, and you get triggered into thinking that, like, you're in a threat or situation, and that your present safety is threatened, and so your body will tense. But if you're not doing cognitively, you know, if it's just doing reflectively, you're not necessarily noticing that that's happening. And so there's this really interesting study from actually, I'm jumping ahead of myself. From the National Center for PTSD that found that 15 to 35% of people with PTSD also have chronic pain. And most likely, those people don't understand the connection between their traumatic event and their pain. So if you think about all those people with chronic pain and they don't know that it's PTSD, right? Because they don't know it's a protective reflex, they're just experiencing pain in their shoulder. They're going to go and find body work and massage and acupuncture to address that physical pain. But here's the thing, you can't address the physical pain on a physical level if it is coming from someplace deeper. And this is why people with chronic pain, they'll go to a body worker. And I've experienced this, you know, in the first part of my profession when I was just doing body work. You know, I had clients that would come in and I would work hard and I would work hard and I would work hard and they would feel better. They would walk out the door, and then an hour or two or a day later, their pain would come back. So then they'd come back to me and I would work harder. I would add more modalities. I would extend my sessions. I was working, thinking that if I could just work harder and longer, I can help them with their physical pain. And it would help for a moment. And then they would leave and the pain would come back. Why? Because of that reflective, you know, mechanism. You know, that chronic pain isn't stemming from a physiological condition, it's stemming from someplace deeper. And so it is essential that we have to be able to address that core issue if we're going to help people resolve chronic pain. Let me give you an example. So here's Mark. Mark is a friend of mine. He's a 65-year-old insurance agency owner, and he came to me with chronic pain in his lower back, numbness in one hand, acute neck and plantar fasciitis pain, and he has been in psychotherapy for 40 years. And in our Trilome session, it dawned on him that his pain was directly related to PTSD from his abusive father and a challenged relationship with his mother, and that his physical body was just processing a challenging failed marriage, a stressful career, and caring for two sons with disabilities. And through our session together, he was able to work through all of that. So with the psychedelics, he's able to get into the subconscious and into his deeper truths about what his body is holding, working with the medicine to come to resolution around what he needs to heal from that. As he was doing that, his physical body starts to release. I can correlate it with the hands-on work. And we just had a beautiful session together. And afterwards, he reported that all of his pain is gone and hasn't returned. And interestingly enough, I actually just saw him this morning, funny enough. So I was asking how he was doing, and he said, you know what, it's amazing because every time I get upset about something, my lower back pain flares. And as soon as I start to feel the lower back pain, I pause and go, oh, what am I upset about? What are the circumstances? Like, what am I emotionally holding? And so he can work with it, and then the physical pain releases. So he's now been able to understand the connection between his life experiences and his emotions and his physical body. And that is such a beautiful, beautiful testimony. And I'm so happy for him. And yeah, the mind-body connection is just phenomenal. It's really cool. Here's discovery number 2. We suppress emotions. Now, I'm sure that that's not new to any of you, but we suppress emotions. Either it's because it's a learned behavior or expectation because of either gender or religious or cultural or any social expectations around what's appropriate and what's not. I mean, the easiest example, right? Men don't cry. Men don't show emotion. Women don't get upset because otherwise we're labeled as bossy or bitchy or whatever it may be, or people don't take us seriously, right? There's a lot of different things. And then our frontal lobe, right? Our logic and thought, we start to tell ourselves interesting stories all the time. Don't show emotion. Don't be dramatic. Deal with it later. Don't worry about it. You should be over it by now. Why are you still upset about that? All of the different things. We get really creative about why we don't emote. Here's the problem with that, is that all emotions are an innate part of our human existence. Every human, I mean, psychopaths, okay, but for the most part, like all humans have the ability to feel all the emotions. And if we take a step back and have a macro view on what emotions are, they are messengers trying to show us something. It's a way for us to look at what's happening around us and to respond or react to it in a way that's healthy and appropriate. Anger, for example, is great. Hey, something is happening that I'm not okay with. Take a look at your boundaries or make different decisions. Fear and anxiety, there's a part of you that doesn't feel safe. Something might be happening that we're not quite sure about. Now, of course, emotions are a lot more intricate than that, but I think you're understanding what I'm saying. And it does us a real disservice to suppress those emotions and not allow them to come through. And so how does this relate to Trilome? Well, emotions carry energy. Think about it. When you're angry, oh, you feel it. When you're scared, you feel it. When you're anxious, you feel it. When you're happy, you feel it. When you're excited, you feel it. There's an energy involved in those emotions. And if we don't express them, then that energy builds in our bodies. And the energy builds and the energy builds and the energy builds until at some point we burst. And that's either through road rage, yelling at a clerk, screaming at a child, crying over spilled milk, as they say, right? Like the emotions will come out in a way that will hurt others that we don't necessarily intend to. Or we start to get sick. Or we start to have physical pain. Our chest will get tight, our stomachs will be upset, our hips will hurt. Our jaws get tight, anger, resentment, that clenching, right? It has a physiological effect. The physical body, the emotional body, the energetic body, they're all intertwined. And so if we're not able to process emotions in a way that is supportive and healthy, it will have an effect on our whole. So how does psychedelics and bodywork, help with the expression of the emotion? Well, that cognitive frontal lobe, right? It's our logic and our thought. That's our filtering system. The psychedelics work with our brain in order to kind of soften that function of our brain. So now we're able to process information from a different perspective. So being able to say, instead of saying, I am, Christian background, I can't be angry, that's sinful. Instead of going, no, something actually happened to my body that I'm not okay with, and it's actually okay for me to be angry at that. Instead of saying, no, sinful, don't express it. Men are able to go, oh, my heart actually really hurts. There's something that I am grieving for, but I've been told that I can't, and so I filter it out. But with the softening of that frontal lobe, now, men, everybody are going, oh, I can actually feel, and it's okay for me to feel. It's right for me to feel. There's a part of me, my inside, that actually needs me to honor the fact that I feel that way. And this is a bit of a tangent, but I have to say it anyway. One of my biggest pet peeves right now in our society is that we ask people for justification on their feeling before we will honor it. I feel scared. Why? There's nothing to be scared of. I feel unsafe. What are you talking about? I feel angry. No, you shouldn't. I want to cry. Still, it's like people want justification. If I approve of your emotion, then I'll honor it. If I don't approve of your emotion, then I will disregard it. Oh, what a disservice. I think we can all feel like when we just want to express an emotion and someone judges it, and that right, that caved in feeling, that adds up over time. And if we don't address it, if we don't express it, if we don't feel it and take a look and go, what is this emotion calling my attention to? How can I create safety around my life? How do I make different emotions? How do I come to terms that I'm in a career that I hate if I don't honor the fact that there's a part of me that's unhealthy or unhappy? So being able to process and really look at, okay, what's the emotion that I'm feeling? What is it calling my attention to? And then being able to use that body work to really express and open your body and get it out of your system is really very important. Here's another example. Liz, dear friend of mine, I love her too. She's a 45-year-old female organizational development professional. So all to say she's in the big corporate world. And she came to me with known trauma in her body. She knew exactly what she was holding, except for the fact that she developed a lifelong battle of pulling out her hair, which is part of the OCD family. And so in the Trilome session, she was able to realize that the hair pulling was the result of the inability to express emotions due to childhood abuse and the overwhelm of the traumatic death of her father. And because of the traumatic death of her father, her mother couldn't handle it and went absent. And she wasn't able to express in her young life body how to express the sorrow and the anxiety and the sadness with that. And so the only way that she was able to do it was through the OCD pulling out her hair. And she was able to see, oh, I just need to express my emotions. If I'm allowed to express my emotions in a safe manner, then I don't have that need to pull my hair out. And sure enough, after the session, I had a long conversation with her, and she reported that her hair pulling has stopped, even after the death of a beloved dog. And the session established her ability to express emotions safely and to release the generational trauma and to completely reset her nervous system. Amazing, right? It's so much fun. I love this so much. So here's the third discovery. We hold energy that doesn't belong to us. Again, I don't think that this is news to anybody, but let me explain this a little bit more. There's this misconception that if I energetically hold for those around me, then I'm showing love and support, and then I'm helping. But here's the thing, if my partner is stressed, and if I start to get stressed for him, it doesn't ease his stress. It doesn't change his experience at all. If your children are going through something and you're holding that in your body and you're going through it, we're supporting and we're really feeling, what's happening with the kids, it doesn't actually ease their experience. And so it's actually not a way for us to show love and support. I mean, you can if you want to. I mean, that's a choice. But let me offer a different perspective, that we can honor what's happening. We can see it. We can respect it. We can emote and sympathize and empathize with what's happening, but we don't actually have to carry it in our physical being. And people will ask me, well, does that mean that I'm cold and disconnected? No, energetic boundaries. And I'll talk more about that in just a moment, but, I can sympathize and I can see and I can help and I can support and I can provide advice, but I don't have to hold it in my physical being. So let's talk about generational trauma and epigenetics. I love these conversations. I love them, right? Because for the most part, in general, these are generalizations. So I hope everyone understands these are generalizations. Generationally, people are told it's a duty and a responsibility to hold for our ancestors, to hold for our family, to hold for our religion, and to hold for our country. And I would argue against that and go, karmically, I believe we don't have responsibility for anybody else except for ourselves, nor can we. It's impossible. Like, I can't be responsible for someone else's emotions and reactions because I don't have control over them. So then to say that I'm now responsible for their experiences is a challenging concept that I don't actually agree with. And so the same concept comes into play, especially with ancestors and those that have gone before us. I see you, I honor you, I can set up an altar, I can set up a way of holding respect and thank you for paving the way for me, but your experience is not my experience. And I don't have to hold that responsibility in my body for what happened in a time before I came. And so I believe that if we just simply say, like, I see you and I honor you, but this is not my truth, it is a way for us to actually stop that generational behavior. And it stops with us, that disillusion and those complex things, generational curses. In my conservative Christian world, we call it generational curses, but those generational patterns that are unhealthy can stop with us by simply saying that is not my truth, and I don't uphold that I have to carry that on. And let me just say, I have a lot of people and friends and clients right now that are Jewish that are carrying in their bodies what's happening right now in Israel. And I have clients that are from Ukraine that are also carrying what's happening in Ukraine. And that is a big thing to carry. However, if you're not directly involved, right, because they're here in the United States, they're not directly involved personally in that aspect. There's ways to advocate, there's ways to support, there's ways to honor what's happening and to step in and to speak your truth. But that energy is not theirs to hold in their body. They still have to deal with it, and it's still part of their existence, but they don't have to hold that tension. They can actually release that tension. And this is where, again, the psychedelics come into play, being able to come into that deep realization around what is my truth? What is my truth, and what am I holding? And is it mine? If it's my stuff, great, I can deal with it. I mean, right, life is so complicated right now. I have enough things to hold on my own experience without trying to take on everyone else's baggage, right? What am I holding, and is it mine? With love and compassion, that is not my truth. With love and compassion, that is not my truth. Again, love, I see, I honor, I respect, I engage, but I don't have to carry the weight of it on my back. Here's an example of that. So meet Helen. And just a side note, for confidentiality reasons, Helen didn't want me to use her actual picture. So this is a stock image of someone that is very beautiful. So if that's you, thank you. But I promise Helen is an actual woman, but she's a psychotherapist. And so if you can imagine, just for confidentiality reasons, I'll keep her identity, at least her picture, secret. But she came to me for a couple times with body work first, with pain in her right shoulder, her left hip, that was affecting her yoga practice and just the overall quality of life. And here's one of those examples of what we were talking about earlier. What I did body work, longer sessions, more modalities, did everything I could. She would feel great when she left, and then the pain would come back. And so she finally agreed to do a Trilome session. And she realized during her session that the pain, this makes me cry every time. So I'm going to try and get through this without getting emotional. The pain in her right shoulder was due to the loss of her infant daughter. So she was 8 months old, and it's actually the arm that she was holding her in when she passed suddenly. It was one of those, unforeseeable kind of freak accident type things. And she was holding her daughter in her left arm, or her right arm. And this was years ago, but she was still holding on to her daughter because she didn't want to let her go. And it was such a beautiful session to be able to realize that, she doesn't have to let her go. Her memory can still stand through, pictures and altars and memorials. And, there's different ways for her to hold on to and love her daughter without it constricting her shoulder and causing her pain that's affecting the quality of her life. So that was an incredible moment. And then we went to her left hip to address what was there. And she realized it was the energy from her grandmother. Her grandmother, in a lot of ways, through her family, paved the way for her to be a strong, independent woman. And her mother, or her grandmother, took the brunt of a lot of setbacks and abuse from her family and culture. And she was holding that in her hip. And it never occurred to her that that's what it was, right? Again, like these people are all in therapy. She's a psychotherapist herself. But understanding how our life experiences and what we hold, tension, energy, emotions, from other people, like, have a profound effect. And she was able to work through and send a lot of love to her grandmother and thank her for, the way that she paved the way for her to do what she does now. And to really advocate for her family in the way that she is, because she is that strong woman, because her grandmother allowed her to be and taught her to be that. It was just a beautiful session I will never forget. And talked to her after the session, and the pain is gone, of course, but it was really just that revelation for what her body holds And in fact, she now is one of my biggest supporters, and she will refer her own clients who just need that next step to go deeper to really understand how to heal. So it's, yeah, it's just, it's beautiful. So here we are, Psychedelic Integrative Bodywork. You know, it's the combination of three modalities, really. You know, there's body work, which is amazing. Obviously, it's so good that we have it. It's good for stress, relaxation. There's a lot. If there are physiological issues, because our you know, our tissue gets tight and there's knots, and you know, we have hard workouts, and you know, we're crunched up in a plane and we're sitting at a desk. And there's some physiological things that body work is beautiful for, but it doesn't really address the deeper layers. Talk therapy, regular therapy, all of the therapies, again, so essential, and we need those modalities. But it's sometimes it takes a long time to see the things that we assume, and it doesn't really address the physical body. And then the psychedelic therapy, you know, there's articles almost every single day now advocating for the beautiful benefits to psychedelic therapy, but it doesn't address the physical body, and it doesn't really, you know, help with the deeper processing of the intellectual. And so, you know, right now, before Trilome, you know, people were having to go to different practitioners to heal, you know, this part for your physical, this part for your emotional, this part for your energetical, you know, go get Reiki or some of those other energetic things, which is, again, great. I'm so happy we have that. But isn't it more efficient if we just do it together? You know, and I have my professional world. You know, I'm a part of a professional bodywork organization. I'm a part of a professional psychedelic therapy session. And it's so interesting to watch them refer clients to each other. Oh, bodywork, if if you suspect that there's deeper trauma, have them go to a therapist. And then I'm watching all of the therapists say, hey, if they're processing trauma, send them to a body worker. So the partnership is already there. And the partnership between these different modalities has already been established. Like there's a deep respect for each other to do what they do. My suggestion is that we do it in one session. And so here, oh, sorry. Let me give you another example. So Kara, another friend, so she came to me because she was feeling completely overwhelmed and anxious and depleted by life. And she's been tormented by nightmares that have kept her awake for decades. So this woman hasn't been able to sleep because every time she falls asleep, she has incredible nightmares. During her Trilome session, and I would say fairly quickly, like, you know, within the first few minutes, she realized that her nightmares were just, were from a deep-seated belief that she wasn't safe if she was sleeping. And she wouldn't be sleeping because of a childhood experience where someone came into her room at night. She developed the belief, and then therefore sleeping is dangerous. And her nervous system was fried because of related patterns to her father and his stress. Like he was an all or nothing. Like there was no middle. It was like full throttle or full off. And so her nervous system didn't know how to regulate, and she didn't feel safe sleeping. And so she was able to see these patterns and realize that her nervous system was just trying to protect her. You know, so it wasn't working against her. It was just what her system knew how to do to keep her safe. What her system knew was stay awake. And the only way to do that was to torment her through nightmares. So she was able to work through all of that. And now I am happy to say, she is able to sleep and rest and regulate her nervous system. And it's dramatically changed her life, if you can imagine. So how does a Trilome session work? It's a 5-hour experience. Clients stay fully dressed, and I often work over blankets. So we just take all of that awkwardness out altogether. Everyone stays completely dressed. I use a threshold dose of medicine, and what that means, it's enough for you to feel it. Like I want you to have that energetic and spiritual opening into your subconscious, but not enough for you to disassociate and have like a full dose. medicinal experience. So depending on what medications you're on, your experience, I specifically tailor it to whichever client that I'm working with. As after you take the medicine, you lay on the table, I do a body scan meditation that just drops you into your body as the medicine starts to come on. And then from there, the arc of the medicine is about 4 hours. So we spend 4 hours together, just really, really slowly going through the body and finding those points of tension and restriction and going, what is there and does it serve you? Is it a protective pattern? And what is it protecting against? And is that still relevant? Is it suppressed emotion? Is it a life experience? Are you holding for someone else? Is it even yours? And so the client will work with the medicine, that deeper access to the subconscious, to go through, what are they holding? How did it get there? And what does it need for resolution and release? And then as that is happening, their body starts to relax. And so I follow through with the body work to really get it out of their system. And then after about 4 hours, we spend time integrating and bringing balance to the whole. I'm happy to say that with Trilome Academy, we now have practitioners throughout the United States. So Georgia, Minnesota, Washington, and California here, of course. And I'm definitely looking for more practitioners. And so if any of this is resonating, I'm looking for practitioners with bodywork experience, bodywork and massage experience. And if you're on the verge of burnout, if you knew that there was a deeper, more profound way that you can help your clients, but you didn't know what, and this resonates, classes are open. Happy to train right now. It's starting as the first part is online. So we do all of the theoretical information around trauma and life experiences, and we do a deep dive into everything that I just said here. And then the final is through an in-person retreat where you watch me give sessions, you do sessions that are supervised. It's important to be able to give and receive, so you have that experience. So by the time you leave, you're fully prepared and empowered to be a Trilome practitioner. So if any of this resonates, if you yourself would like a session, or if you know someone who would like a session, I am offering 20% off. Anyone that references the Spiritual Growth Forum, you get 20% off your sessions. And if you are also interested in becoming a Trilome practitioner, you also get 20% off of the program. So my contact details are below. It's also on the screen. If any of this resonates, I would love to talk to you. This work saved my life. I was to the point where either something needed to happen or it would probably end my life. And I'm so grateful that instead of psychedelics sending me to hell, they actually saved my life. And now I'm able to support other people and help them out of their own hells. So ironic indeed, but it's a beautiful practice. So again, if this resonates, I would love to hear from you. It was so much fun being here. Thank you to Charisse and the team for all of your work. Thank you for putting on a beautiful event. And I look forward to seeing all of you very soon. Thanks. Bye.